One of the most attention-grabbing YouTube channels I've come across is the channel Yes Theory. Are there any other folks out there that spend way too much time on YouTube? A group of daring, thrill-seeking millennials, they make videos that are based on the idea of one central question. What if I were to say yes to something risky, challenging, or even uncomfortable? One of the wildest videos from this team shows them jumping into freezing water in the snow-capped mountains of Poland. In the icy waters, they spend an unthinkable 10 minutes in bone-chilling discomfort. Oh, now I don't know about you, but even thinking about this makes me deeply uncomfortable. I feel my skin crawl with shivers. It's no surprise or joke that their motto is the very title of this sermon: seek discomfort. They believe that life is best and most fully lived when we are pushed past our comfort zones. The space beyond our comfort levels is where lives life's greatest moments and deepest connections. When I think about one of these transformative moments, I'm taken back to a leadership camp I attended back in high school. Now, I am deathly afraid of heights. And standing at the top of Mount Ascutney in Vermont, a tall tree-covered granite mountain with a ledge 100 feet above the ground, several other high schoolers and I tied our own rope harnesses as we prepared to rappel down the granite ledge, slippery and glistening from a fresh rain. I felt utter shock looking over that ledge. Discomfort doesn't quite capture the nervousness and the adrenaline rush I had standing with my feet right over the ledge. It's as if all of my evolutionary ancestors were screaming, "No, what are you doing? Humans aren't supposed to be this high up." My knees buckled and shook, and leaping off the edge, I felt that roller coaster feeling, my heart dropping straight down to my stomach. To make it all worse, I slipped with my footing, and I found myself dangling upside down, head to the ground. My life was literally hanging on by a rope, and I had to put my faith in the harness I had tied before the drop. Blood rushed to my head as I sorted through my options, and swinging my legs back underneath me, I finally managed to work my way down the slope, collapsing into the arms of my friends at the bottom of the cliff. Now, how many of you can relate to this feeling? That nervous feeling, almost like you're dangling off of a rope off the side of a mountain. More seriously, that feeling of being pushed way past your limits. With the times that we're in, we are in a perpetual space of being pushed way past our comfort zones. We are wrestling with discomfort in the face of a pandemic that has claimed more than 1 million lives. And a week ago, we saw this country's death toll pass 200,000. Our world is in a state of ecological crisis and disaster. California has seen more than a whopping 4 million acres burned by wildfires. And we're seeing rises in the number of storms, floods, hurricanes, and droughts. Political stakes and tensions have never felt higher, especially in the wake of last week's debate and the nasty battle over filling the Supreme Court seat of the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And as if 2020 couldn't hold more crises and disasters, we've seen time and time again how our institutions and systems have failed to hold white officers and law enforcement accountable for the killings of people of color. And in response to this racial injustice crisis, the present administration has continued to deny the severity of our nation's culture of white supremacy. The motto, "Seek discomfort," hardly seems relevant. We don't have to seek discomfort. We're swimming in it. Take a moment to notice the discomfort that we are swimming in this moment. The way things look this fall are drastically different than the way things looked in the spring. Students from kids to young adults are wrestling with the discomfort of Zoom classes, between squirmy bodies and restless feet and having to sit still. We are in a season of bright screens and sore eyes, of aching backs, of countless hours on Zoom, spending time looking at one another this way instead of spending that time face to face. Some of us are still terrified to leave our own homes, wondering when the last time we saw someone in person was, or when the last time we hugged someone was. After over half a year of social distancing, we're feeling the heaviness and the weariness from being in this long liminal space. Thinking about Yes Theory's philosophy, this time seems almost the opposite. This doesn't feel like it's a time of life's greatest moments and deepest connections, nor that we are living our best and fullest lives. For some of us, swimming in this discomfort is a new way of being in the world. And for some, this new way of being has only exacerbated the discomfort that we've experienced from well before the pandemic started. This is especially true for those of us who are Black, Indigenous, or people of color. More and more, our siblings of color have been calling on us to hear and bear witness to their discomfort. Even in this case, discomfort doesn't quite fully capture the magnitude of systemic racial injustice in white supremacy. Even so, some of us may still feel a sense of discomfort with hearing these words. What comes up for you when you hear the words white supremacy? Do you feel a sort of squirmy feeling? How many of you feel a sense of anger or frustration, either with the words or at the current inequities of our current country? Do you feel nervous or scared? I know when I first heard the words white supremacy, I felt a combination of all of these feelings. Hearing this for the first time in my college classes, I felt a bit like I was jumping into icy water or hanging off the edge of a tall cliff. My mouth was dry and my throat caught as I explored what it might mean for me, yes, me, to be racist. Hearing these words, my heart sank. I listened as my classmates and peers of color talked about the many ways that they experience racism in the day-to-day. They widened my understanding of how I could be complicit with racism and how racism works in insidious and systemic ways. I found myself wanting to return to comfort, wanting to think about more positive things. I thought to myself, surely I'm not racist. I'm a good person, right? My returning to comfort and thinking of myself as a good white person was a luxury. As my classmates and friends shared their stories of experiencing discrimination, it became clear to me that comfort was a place I lived in happily. It's something that I have regular access to as a white person and as a white male. Holding this discomfort, I realized that my want to hide from these conversations or to find comfort wouldn't change the lived realities of so many of my friends and colleagues. It wouldn't stop the ways in which people of color have had to fear for their very lives, or even for the lives of their family members and their children. In our reading this morning, Raising a Black Boy Not to Be Afraid, Dr. Nicole Fleetwood speaks about her own fear for her son's life. She names the discomfort her son felt just in walking to school. In her words, "My son felt no discomfort with white people. He felt discomfort with these encounters. Their fear not only made him a threat in their minds, but more importantly, it made him unsafe. And that filled me with terror and dread." After all, he was the same age and size of Tamir Rice, who was killed by Cleveland police when he was playing alone in a park. Fleetwood highlights for us an aspect of this culture of white supremacy that not everyone has access to. Certainly, 12-year-old Tamir Rice didn't have a right to comfort when he was killed 6 years ago by police. And as we've seen in these past weeks, Breonna Taylor and her family also didn't have a right to comfort or justice, being shot and killed in her own home. What is at the root of this discomfort? Is it that we are afraid to face the hard truths about who we are as a society, about who we ourselves, how we fail to measure up at times? Or is it also that we're afraid to mess up and make mistakes? That someone else will point out something that we weren't aware of? What if we were to hold this discomfort differently? What if we saw this discomfort as an opportunity to grow and to learn? Understanding discomfort as the root of all growing and learning is a part of what can help us move away from this aspect of white supremacy culture. It can be an invitation for us to pay attention and to listen, to quiet our emotional gut reactions. It can challenge our own thinking that we've got things all figured out, honoring that the horrific and unjust actions that are still happening in this country in the name of racism are still ongoing. All the while, we must hold this discomfort while we also hold the uncomfortable realities of our current times. Only then will transformation be on our horizons. In our Time for All Ages story that Jane read this morning, Ish by Peter Reynolds, we see an example of how transformation is possible. Ramon learns to draw and think Ishly. He learns to see himself and the world in a new way, experiencing new vision for the world around him. Ramon no longer holds fear that what he is drawing isn't exact or perfect. In the end, he understands things from a new perspective. Friends, we too must be willing to see things from a new perspective, like Ramon. We are in a liminal space and a threshold for transformation. We must decide who we are and who we want to become. We must decide who we are as Unitarian Universalists in the face of this hurting and broken world. The world will not be the same as it was before the pandemic. And in many ways, it shouldn't be. Not if we want to be better. Not if our hearts are courageously turned to seeking this discomfort and learning from it. Our Unitarian Universalist faith demands this of us, and our vision of the beloved community beyond our wildest dreams calls us to lean into discomfort. We are called to be a source of strength and comfort for one another, especially for those of us who are the most vulnerable. Our simple Universalist legacy gives us this faith that no matter how terrible this world looks or how scary things might seem, this world is still worth saving. And it is up to us to make this salvation real. I invite you to dig deeper and to learn more about systemic racism. Find spaces where you can feel challenged in your thinking, continue to stand out for Black lives on Sundays, and in many other ways, every single day. And to those of you attending the Me and White Supremacy book discussions, share what you're learning with others. As you find yourself holding this discomfort, be tender and gentle with yourself. We're all learning. None of us has this all figured out. And we can't ever hope to glimpse the beloved community without being willing to be uncomfortable, without being willing to sit in the icy water for a little while. It is only then that we might bring about the comfort for each one of us to live out our fullest lives. So when you find yourself sitting with that feeling like you're hanging over the ledge, may you find comfort in the uncomfortable. May you find hope in the possibility of the world before us. May you find reassurance knowing that none of us travels this path alone. Take heart, seek discomfort, listen deeply, and love boldly. May it be so. Amen. As we sing our next hymn, I invite you to find comfort in this collective Unitarian Universalist vision of the beloved community. Jay Woodruss will now lead us in singing our closing hymn, Comfort Me.